Okay, I have pressed the record button. It's 11 o'clock. Welcome to everyone who's on the screen. And if you aren't on mute, I kindly ask you to mute yourselves and for a little while. So welcome to, I think this is the third or fourth hero versus villain debate. And this one, North-South divide, is entirely the fault of Charles Jardine. He mentioned it in passing during our last one. And so here we are discussing it.
It was a joke, for goodness sake. And I was a drowning man at the time. But give me a break.
That is fair. But anyway, there are some serious aspects to this debate. It's created a huge amount of interest on social media. I mean, some of it's been a little, I don't know, chippy, should we say? But this is meant to be A, both serious, and B, a bit of fun. But no, we don't want to turn this into a class war. So plan is, I'm just going to give a little introduction to Charles and our two special guests today, Marina and Phillippa, and then they are each going to make their pitch about North versus South, and then we're going to have a discussion, and about halfway through, we're going to throw it open to the floor. And if you'd like to ask a question, you can either send a message via chat and I'll pick it up, or you can put up your hand, I'll make a note, and I'll get back to you. So just put your hand up once. There's no need to hold it up as if you're at school wanting to go to the toilet. Just put it up once and hopefully I'll notice it. So our protagonist today, Charles Jardine, a very old friend of mine, and I'm not going to spare his blushes. He is undoubtedly the most accomplished angler of our generation. Oh, there is no two ways about it. He's a talented artist, a brilliant writer. He's currently director of Fishing for Schools, which is a fantastic program that is going to secure the future of fly fishing for many years to come. And I always say, I frequently have people ask me, yeah, I'm starting out fly fishing, what's the best book to buy? And without a shadow of a doubt, it's Charles's book, The Sotheby's Guide to Fly Fishing, which was published way back in 1991. It is an absolutely brilliant book. It's got lovely commentary, it's got great photos, and you can still get it on Amazon for 25 quid. And if you want to give a book to someone to start their fly fishing career, best 25 quid you'll ever spend on fly fishing, I guarantee.
Oh, bless you. Thank you. Oh.
That's okay, Charles. I just take 10%.
Yeah.
Can I just that I read somewhere that Charles Jardine is the David Beckham of fishing.
Yeah, right.
I did. I read this somewhere the other day.
Well, perhaps, Marina, if you married
talent, I haven't got an expensive wife, and I lack the physical shape and mannerisms of Mr. Beckham. I've got no talent. I love what I do, and let's leave it at that, shall we?
Okay, if anyone thought Marina and myself were Charles's PR agents, they're absolutely right. So, anyway, next,
hired, both of you actually.
Next, a very special welcome to Phillippa Hake, who's joining us today from West Yorkshire. She's one of the new breed of young guides, which is fantastic. We haven't got nearly enough of you, and she's a simply astonishing fly tyer. You can follow, she posts almost daily on social media, these amazing creations. And she guides on the Calder, in the Calder Valley in West Yorkshire. It's not a river you'd have considered fishing 50 years ago. It was heavily polluted by the textile industry, but today it's a wonderful river with plenty of wild browns, plenty of grading. Phillippa's coming to us today live from a caravan in
No, we're not in a caravan now. We're at my other half's grand's house. We've upgraded for the day.
Well, thank you. Both Phillippa's parents have come down with COVID, so she was unceremoniously kicked out for all the best reasons.
we were out of there.
Well done. And finally, and welcome again, our other special guest today, Marina Gibson. She's actually coming from Germany today, but her base is, of course, North Yorkshire, where she recently launched the Northern Fishing School at the rather lovely Swinton Park Hotel, which actually you may have seen on Channel 5 last week with Giles Corran. I think Marina was trying to teach Giles to fish.
Yeah, it was funny.
It's there to be had on catch up. And Marina is an absolutely wonderful ambassador for our sport to social media. She's opening it up to a whole new generation of people, and people are extremely jealous of her lifestyle because she apparently spends her entire time on holiday, which of course we all know is entirely true, but there you go. And I am intensely jealous of Marina. You can follow her exploits. She has a double page spread in trout and salmon every month. I'm just reduced to a single page. So Marina, kudos for getting that. Right, so let's kick off. So Charles is going to make the case for the North. So Charles.
I'm making the case for the North?
The South.
Well, okay, I can, because I've got Cheshire blood in myself. But, that, again, I just like to sort this one out. For any of you in the North, can you explain to me, when I've said to somebody in the North, oh, my mum was from Cheshire, she was a Cheshire lass. Oh, that's not the North. I mean, it's this whole business, Simon, of North and South and all the rest of it. I've yet to catch a trout, actually, that spoke to me in any kind of accent whatsoever, which is good news, actually. And you can't help where you have come from. I mean, I was born in Kent, and that's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's just a state of fact. And you fish in the area and you celebrate the area that you were born into. And you just hope that there's fishing there. And I was really fortunate. I had the sea not far from me. I had marshes I could go and fish as a little boy for rudd, and I used to fly fish for rudd. We used to fish for tench. We used to fish for eels. In the winter, we'd fish for flounders, for cod. And my father had a little tiny stretch of the lesser Stour. And we managed even to get rainbows to breed in it, which was quite extraordinary in those days. We did stock from Byberry Fish Farm, and we had a head of brown trout. And, it was an extraordinary little river. But that's all I had to fish. I mean, yes, we had the greater Stour as well. So this business of, oh, I'm not worthy because I fish in, the South. Well, if you're born in the South, you can't really help that. Get over it, actually. So, and what I would say to everyone on this call, Simon and I have done these a number of times, and only latterly have we opened it up to videos and the ability for everyone to participate. And thus far, it's been wonderful. But the level of entrenched opinion when we put it out on social media, on Facebook and what have you, was breathtaking. And some of it was not only myopic, but also on a couple of instances quite rude. And I would hope that everybody on this call today, Simon, treated it as they should, as a light-hearted look at geographically where we are, the differences, and celebrate those differences, because we all love to fish. That's my pitch. it's going to be a bit like Marina's, I suspect, is, yes, I'm sitting on the fence a bit. There's an awful lot to celebrate about the South. I think we've got, wherever the South is, I have no idea anymore geographically. You know, there's always going to be the debate about chalk streams and their efficacy, but not the whole of the South is not just chalk streams. You've got the West Country, you've got some of the finest still waters in the land in Blagden and Shoe and Buell and so many others. So, you know, let's get a sense of perspective here. We've also got quite a lot of people in this part of the universe to look after. So we do pretty damn, as a country as a whole, we are amazing at managing with what we have. The tiny resource that we have, we manage incredibly well. I know we whine on about pollution and all the rest of it, but given the density of population, we do incredibly well compared with other countries, I believe. Anyway, that's me.
Well, thank you, Charles. I'm horrified to hear you're sitting on the fence. It's interesting,
well,
actually.
For the moment, actually.
All right, just actually, one of the interesting things when we first put this up on social media was actually where the divide is. Philip Ellis says you can all use the chat function anytime you like if you just want to make a comment or snarky comment or ask a question. Philip Ellis has said, north of Watford is my understanding of the divide. I mean, there we go. That's an interesting concept. And the map I pulled up that we put on social media was that was generally the consensus. If you put into Google, where is the north-south divide? It's basically a line that goes diagonally from Bristol upwards, up in the northeasterly direction to the Humber or Hull, and everything below that is the south, and everything above that is the north. So, you know, it's debatable where the north ends and the south starts. Northern Ireland, by the way, is definitely in the north. So anyway, so thank you, Charles. So Phillippa, it's over to you.
So I'm not on the fence. I'm very much on. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
I was just muted for a second. Yeah, I'm very much batting for Team North. You know, like Charles says, you can't help where you've been brought up and where you're born and whatnot. And I think I'm pretty lucky in the fact that I was born quite rural. In terms of, you know, the countryside's only a 2-minute walk away and stuff like that. And I'm surrounded by, you know, miles and miles of freestone rivers, which are very accessible to fish on, relatively cheap if you compared them to fishing down south, like on, you know, for instance, on the Itchen or something, you know, you'd pay a lot more to fish. Well, probably pay what you pay for a day ticket would probably get you a year ticket and probably a little bit more up here. But yeah, I think we have in my personal opinion, I think we've got a lot more venues. And you know, you could say that for instance, we've got like the wild tarns we've got in like North Yorkshire and Scotland and stuff. That could be an argument against how clear the chalk streams are. Like Charles says, there's not only just chalk streams in the south, but like we say, where is the line of the north and south divide? I mean, I think it's down to wherever the person who's wanting to decide where it is, that's where they put it.
We're all on the Isle of Wight, really, aren't we?
Yeah. I mean, is that south? But yeah, I think there's arguments for both sides.
Oh, you gone? You're back again.
We lost you, Phillippa.
We have.
I don't.
Oh, there you are.
I'm not too sure why it keeps muting itself.
Well, maybe you've got one of those special iPhones that doesn't like talking to people in the south. I mean,
yeah. Maybe my phone bats for the north too.
I mean,
that's
just
why it's called an iPhone.
Oh, geez.
Oh, that's terrible, isn't it?
Phillippa, just a quick question. I mean, you
Yep.
fish both. What do you, I mean, for instance, grayling fishing, because I know you do a lot of grayling fishing up in
Yep.
Yorkshire. And I know you come south to do some grayling fishing. I mean, what would you highlight as the major difference in techniques between the two?
I've only fished a couple of times down south for the grayling, and most of that was on, well, both times on chalk streams, whereas up in the north you can use a few more methods and stuff, because the couple of times that I fished down south, it was sight fishing for grayling, which was exciting and I really enjoyed it, but sometimes you just can't take a Yorkshire girl out of Yorkshire.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Counter that, you could go and fish on the Little Lynn on the Devon-Cornwall borders, and you could pinch yourself. You're fishing the Upper Wharf. I mean, it's just a question of where you find yourself. Sorry,
Yeah.
but it is.
That's
Anyway.
fine. Well, thank you. Before we hop on to Marina, just a few comments, some great comments we've had on the chat. Here's a good one. As a Cornishman, the north starts at Plymouth. I like that one. Thank you, Michael. I like that very much. Graham McIntosh, I'm up in the northeast of Scotland and lucky enough to be able to fish the River Tay. Yeah, huge yes to that. Kieran Nason, having lived in Cumbria, Midlands, and now down south, the main divide is cost. I think we'll definitely get onto that later on. Accessibility down south is more limited, and the common perception that chalk streams are elite due to the cost and accessibility. I wouldn't disagree with that as comments. I fish the Scarry every year. This is Mike Irwin, which is a 700-mile drive from the southern Hampshire. The Scottish border is only just over halfway. Here we are. So for me, the north is somewhere north of Glasgow. Yeah. Lindsay Simpson says he doesn't see any divide. You just jump in the car and go there. Yeah.
We won't at the moment, Lindsay. Sorry, but there we are.
That's very true. So, that's a sort of flavour of what people are thinking. So, Marina, over to you.
So I've been saying for a few days to Simon and Charles that I'm sitting on the fence, but they've told me that I have to go one way or the other. And seeing as though I live in the north now, well, I think it's the north, then I'm going to talk about the north mainly, but a little bit of background. So I was born in the south and I was brought up fishing our local trout pond, and also we used to do a lot of trips up to Scotland and spend a lot of our summer holidays up there. So I guess for me, when I was living in the south, going up to Scotland was definitely, there was a huge difference, and a huge difference in fishing as well, especially if we were fishing for migratory fish. But then when I was in my early 20s, I was fishing a lot of reservoirs and still waters. And then I ventured on to fishing rivers that I had never fished. For example, lucky enough to fish the River Test and Itchen and Anton. And to be honest, I didn't really fish that many rivers and other than Scotland. So any of the English rivers, this was quite a new thing for me. And then it went on to starting my guiding, which was pretty much predominantly all down south, where the water in Hampshire, the water is clear and you're mainly reading the fish and not the water. So when I then moved up to North Yorkshire, and I started fishing those rivers up there, it was really quite difficult in the beginning because I had never fished with North country spiders. I now had to read the water. And of course, I did that when I was younger on the salmon rivers, but it was sort of, it was pretty much, a lot of it was by myself. So I had to work out a lot of it, by myself, or maybe, So it was different, very different. And it's also very different guiding someone when you can't see the fish as well, because you have to then teach them how to read the water. So that's definitely something that I saw a huge difference in, especially, I think I learned more actually when I moved north and I was fishing the likes of the River Yore, and I fished the Wharf and the Tees and any rivers around there. The thing that I really love about being north is that you are near, for example, the Tyne and all the Scottish rivers. So you can hop in your car and it's half as long to get to Scotland than you are in the south. So for me, that is definitely a no-brainer. But I know you can catch salmon down south, but there are a lot more options up north, especially, I mean, Charles, you'll know more about this than me. I've been salmon fishing once on the Test and it was great, but it was something that was so alien to me because of all the nymphing, whereas I just love swinging a fly. The beauty of spey casting is my favorite thing. And I also love teaching people spey casting.
I mean, I'll jump in there, Simon, if I may, and just say I wasn't allowed to fish a salmon. My father had a rod at Samerley on the Avon, and also one at Broadlands. And as a kid, I wasn't allowed. I mean, you can go and play with trout, son, but you can't play with big boys' game of salmon. And then it was an era of salmon fishing that actually wasn't quite so fly fishing centric. There was a far broader church fishing then. You fish prawn, you fish plugs, you fished all sorts of things. But the Avon was probably the one that if everyone wanted to really use a double-handed rod, that's the one they would go to. And obviously Broadlands too, but of course, much above Rumsey, Simon, I think you'll echo this, and anyone else that knows George Streams, a salmon's pretty much frowned upon. Once it gets past the upper reaches of Romsey, that's it. They're
well, I mean, let me tell you a story about how much salmon were hated on the upper reaches of the Test. There was a famous lady called the Marchioness of Tavistock who owned Worwell Priory, and she was called a doughty old lady, and she's in fact buried in the church in Worwell churchyard with her housekeeper. So you can guess she was a fairly unusual woman in the 50s, and she used to hang over the bridge and shoot salmon with a shotgun because she used to feel they interfered with the spawning of the trout. So there you go. That's but they used to.
God knows what she did to grayling. I don't even want to know, Frank.
Oh, they just killed them all. But so interesting, Marina. I really thought that was a fantastic description of talking about reading the fish rather than reading the water when you come down to south. And I have to say, I panic when I go to a river where I can't see the fish. I've become so used to it through my fishing life, and it takes me probably, I don't know, at least a day when I go away from the chalk stream to sort of decompress and get a new sort of perspective on fishing. And as you say, reading the water, and I genuinely don't think I could guide someone away from the chalk streams. So, I mean, do you find that with people, if people who come from an alien environment, do you find they struggle when they first arrive with you?
Yeah, I think also when you're guiding people and you can see the fish, people get really excited because you're saying, okay, so let's say they're feeding on nymphs and they're moving slightly side to side, and then you can see their white lips and you can see them moving underneath, or they're coming up to the surface. So you get really excited. Whereas when you can't see the fish, they're trying to imagine, them swimming against the current, and you're trying to create this image as well. And that's even harder for people to get excited, I think. So yeah, it is.
Yeah, I think that's okay for a point, but there's other things. I was up in Cumbria a couple of years ago now, we were doing a thing for Norris's, and I think it was on the Eden. It must have been actually. I moved away, and I just wanted to do a bit of fishing on my own. But there's far more likelihood of getting really polarized rises on a northern river, I think, than on the south, because you suddenly get this sudden influx of fly, and it's almost like a light switch going on underneath the surface that you suddenly get, galvanizes all the fish to come up, and then you can really get to work. And then you have to, obviously, as you say, read the water, know where the seams are, know where the back eddies are, know what's underneath your feet. But there's a far greater willingness to rise en masse than perhaps on a chalk stream, where there's a greater spread of food. Although that's diminishing now, Simon, isn't it? Because the hatches, I mean, I've noticed in, I was going to say short lifetime, but that's actually not true anymore. In my lifetime, it's just changed out of all recognition. I mean, I can't even describe to both Phillippa and Marina what it was like to fish during the 60s and the 70s and the 80s on a chalk stream in Hampshire. It was like dropping into ambrosia, and it was, the world was full of little tiny wings and rising trout a lot of the time. It really was, and it was that good. And
I mean, it's interesting you say that, Charles. I mean, people, I yin and yang on the fly life debate, but there are a lot of hatches still. Now, whether they're the same hatches we had 20, 30, 40 years ago, I'm not entirely sure. But the thing I notice most is the lack of rising fish. That's definitely the major difference I see. But Phillippa, I have a question for you.
Yep.
When you tie a lot of flies, and I know you sell a few, is there a big difference between the what your clients want from you down in the south from elsewhere?
Yeah, I often get a lot of people asking for shrimp patterns. Now, we don't get shrimp on the River Calder, so it's not a fly that I tie to fish myself most of the time. And I get a lot of things for, let me think, rack my brains. I get a lot of asks for like mayfly patterns, and as well, obviously, the further north you get, we don't get mayfly. I think they get the mayfly in. They obviously get it on the Derbyshire and stuff like that. But we don't get them on our rivers. We don't get them on the Calder anyway. So yeah,
you get them over more to the coastline, don't you? On the Ray,
yeah,
on those on.
Yeah.
We see the odd massive mayfly, but we don't get, I mean, it's nothing like the south.
Yeah, nothing like we'd compared down to like on the chalk streams and stuff like that. But yeah, I get a lot of people asking, can you do me a chalk stream selection? And then more as the clients come up north, it's more spider patterns and nymphs, like jiggy patterns, which is a lot of what I fish. Anyway, I do a lot of nymphing on our rivers up north. But yeah, I do get, you can tell the difference of where, before they even say where they're coming from, the flies that they're wanting. As soon as like the mayfly and the shrimpy patterns, I get a little click in my head of thinking, oh, these must be going down south somewhere.
Yeah, Phillippa, do you get a lot of snails? Because there's a couple of rivers and we have escapee rainbows, and so we take them home and eat them, smoke them, but in the stomachs are full of snails. So I'm wondering whether you can tie me some snails, please.
Not something I've noticed really. I can definitely tie you some snails, Marina. But yeah, it's not something I've known on my local 2 or 3 rivers that I'm in close proximity with. To be honest, the Calder's quite, we get hatches, but nothing like you would get like a mayfly hatch. They can be quite sparse compared to, like Charles was saying, when he fished in Cumbria, when you get like big stonefly hatches and stuff like that. We get them and they're not really as big as what they are on other rivers. We do get, you know, a nice hatch or whatever, but nothing to like, wow, look at this hatch.
Yeah.
That's
Oh, yeah.
Jump in. What, Simon, it's fascinating this, because if you notice, we've been talking purely about rivers and really not about still waters. Now, Marina's mentioned still waters a couple of times, but essentially it's all about rivers and river centric. And, you know, if you want a really good snail pattern, I mean, not subsurface, but on the surface, and on Grapham, one of the greatest snail patterns you'll ever use is a little tiny size 14, very dark claret Bob's bits. It is stunning. They will hoover that up like ninepence. They really will. And that is one of the things, I mean, one of the greatest treats that we have in this country, and we don't celebrate them enough, is our reservoirs. And I know they're full of stockfish, and I know that doesn't float everyone's boat, but you catch a grown-on fish on the bottom of the south arm of Rutland or in Grapham with a tail, especially back end as we were doing when they're feeding on those invasive shrimps. And I know there's been a lot of stuff, and I think, Simon, you wrote about grey squirrels and, you know, being fed contraceptives and God knows what. I find that fantastic. However, please don't meddle with the killer shrimps in Grapham, because they've defined a style of fishing that is absolutely breathtaking. It really has been fabulous sport. And catching a bar of silver, like a mini steelhead from those rivers, from those still waters, is incredible. It's exciting. It's the nearest thing you'll ever get to bone fishing in this country. And, you know, we should celebrate that more than we do. And very often, you know, oh, you fish reservoirs, you know, and that comes from both north and south. Oh, so you fish lakes. You're not a lesser being if you fish lakes.
That's a very fair point. And actually, there are very few people who, certainly, I'd say certainly in southern England, it's probably less true in northern England. There are very few people who start their fishing career on rivers. That they tend to start off on still waters for a whole variety of reasons: cost, more chance of catching fish, and then they progress onto rivers. I think that's a slightly less defined fly fishing career path in the north, where you have more access to free or cheap fishing, and that is a major disadvantage down here in the south.
Fall right into the trap here, right into it. Sorry, everyone, but here we go.
What have I said that's so wrong?
Here we go.
But it is true.
No, it's not true at all. Okay, so I want to go fishing for a season.
Yeah.
And I want to pay 400 quid. Where do you think I'm going to go?
What, down south?
Anyway.
Well, you hit down south. Go on, you answer your own question.
I will answer. I can fish the Frome for 400 quid, and that's mostly wild fish. I can fish Salisbury waters for 285 quid. And again, that's being skewed increasingly to wild fish. I can pay 560 quid plus 200 quid joining fish, a fee to fish the wharf at Kilnsea. And I think there's an awful lot of stocking going up there. Please put me right if I'm wrong. The Loon, 255 quid. T-Bay, 110 quid. This is all quite expensive stuff. Then we go up to the rather more heady heights of the Wilton, which I think is just over, it's about 1,000. That's quite a lot, all wild fish. And then you go to Chatsworth, 1,200 plus VAT. You go to, sorry, Don, I don't know if, and others that might be avoid that, but I think you have to pay about over 1,000 for your water, and it's probably absolutely worth it. But, you know, this nonsense, and it is absolutely nonsense, that just because you're in the south, you have to pay more. Doesn't bear scrutiny. Yes, on prime beats of the test and what have you, I would agree. Prime beats the Itchin, absolutely. It's exclusive, and the reason you're paying for that exclusivity, and you're paying for it. But, you know, let's forget that our sport is quite expensive.
I absolutely take your point, Charles, and I think that was fascinating. I think I was just trying to make a slightly different point, that it's just hard down here to find free water that you can just wander onto.
Well, you can, but you have to share it with a lot of people.
Yeah, and I think, and I mean, it's definitely, you know, people often ask me, you know, where's there someone I can take my kids for free? And there is our friend Theo, can't remember his surname.
Theo Pike.
Theo Pike has written a fantastic book on free fishing, and he's done a lot of research and proved it's actually quite hard to find in the south. But look, I just make a point. So, but Marina, Phillippa, I mean, if I said to you in your neck of the woods, I just want to take my kids fishing, are there plenty of places to go for free?
So go on, yes. Marina, you first.
Hey, sure. No, you go.
Okay. I mean, around Halifax, Huddersfield, Leeds area, obviously on my home river, the Calder, a day ticket is only £5. And then in Huddersfield, there is a stretch of the River Colne that is free. You can pretty much just park your car and go fishing. But a lot of the day tickets are, you know, some of them between £5 and £15 for a day ticket on, I believe, maybe a little bit more in the trout season. But if you're going, you know, for the grayling, it's always a little bit cheaper. But yeah, there is quite a little bit of free fishing in and around Yorkshire, I believe.
Yeah, I am a member of a club near you, Phillippa, and I think it cost me 30 quid for the year.
Yeah, mine's the year.
And then I also think if you have kids and you want to take them fishing and not, you know, burst the bank, I think that canals can be really good as well.
Yeah.
And they're pretty much.
If we're going to go down that route, I mean, if you say the canals and all the rest of it, I mean, what we're talking about is coarse fisheries that offer the odd trout, and you know, we could do that down here. I'm a member of Yeovil and Sherborne Angling Club, and I've got any amount of the yo and drains and what have you. I'm going to fish pike. There is the odd trout, I think, and other things. So, you know, if you're going down the coarse fishing route with attachments, yes, traditionally across the country, it is cheaper. But what I would also say is I would dearly love to see around our cities, major towns, areas that were free for fishing, free for kids to go fishing. What a wonderful thing that would be if we had, and you can fish through, you know, through Winchester. People forget this. Yeah. I mean, you can actually fish free through Winchester. Through many of our medieval cities and towns, there is free water within the city walls. So you can actually, you know, I've always wanted, and there's some big old brown trout that I've always wanted to really upset in the middle of Salisbury, but I just haven't plucked up enough courage to go. I'm going to go there one dawn. No one will know.
It's funny you should say that, because I took my daughter Minnie a couple of years ago to fish in Salisbury during the Mayfly, and you can and there we sat on this bench and watched all these fish Mayfly. Yeah, and then we went on the river, and then about a few months later we see that very bench. It was the one the Skippoles that sat on.
Crikey.
So, but anyway, a few interesting points about free fishing, and then I'm going to ask. Then we're going to ask for some questions. Michael Rescall, the free fishing stretch on the Itchen runs through the centre of Winchester and south to St Catherine's Loch, has virtually no fishing, just a few grayling. It's doable, but you have to watch out for pedestrians on your back cast.
Like they go so well, don't they? You know, when you hook one, they really go.
Yeah, but we got a strict catch and release policy these days. On plenty of cheap fishing in Derbyshire, but not free fishing. The Wandle in South London, the Colne in Huddersfield is free, I believe. Good point here. On the southern chalk streams, the grayling season is much more affordable. 7 miles of the River Nid around Pateley Bridge plus Scar House Reservoir, 90 quid a year. Here's a good point. West Country passport scheme for about 15 quid a day. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty amazing. So yeah, I mean, plenty of free fishing. So I'm unfortunately, there's too many people on the screens for me to identify everyone's hands. So perhaps someone could unmute themselves and ask a question.
That's going well.
Well, I'll unmute myself, Peter Chambers.
Hello, Peter. How are you?
Hello, Charles. Long time.
It is.
It was really to talk about the fishing availability in the north of England. I fish a little bit further north than Phillippa in Nidderdale and Wharfdale. And I have to say, gentlemen, there's plenty of very inexpensive all free fishing on most of the rivers. We do have the Kilsey anglers and we do have the Abac clubs, which are 4 figures. But I know that around most of the towns, there is free fishing. Around the cities, I was introduced to free fishing in the heart of Sheffield. I mean, literally in the heart of Sheffield, under Queen's Bridge, by Stuart Crofts. And there's free fishing there. And most of the clubs, my own included, we allow youngsters, and we call them youngsters if they're under 21. We used to do it under 16, but we realised that at 17 you don't suddenly find £200 to join a club to fish for free. But on the free fishing side, I'd just make the point, a lot of the clubs offer free fishing to youngsters, provided they're accompanied by some sort of guardian. And that's because I'm not sure it's quite safe for youngsters to have free fishing without any sort of guidance. There is certainly plenty of free fishing, as Philip has already said, in the northern bit that I know of, which is anything from Sheffield up to the Tyne.
I think
that's all I want to say.
I think, Peter, you've identified something that I've noticed been the biggest change in my lifetime is the freedom of young people. You know, whereas we used to go out fishing, you know, there'd be a gang of us, there'd be a whole bunch of us, and we just go. And now, through media pressure and I suppose obvious pressure, that doesn't happen so much. So we don't just jump on our bikes and go pike fishing or perch fishing or rudd fishing or tench fishing or trout fishing, whatever it happened to be. Now you're always accompanied by a guardian, and that's restrictive because then you've got to start working in within the family, whole family scenario of, you know, is there time? It's a really difficult thing. I don't quite know. You know, it's what we found with fishing for schools. We can enthuse the young people, but it's whether you can enthuse the parents to take the young people when they've come through the system, and that's very much the harder job than we have actually getting the young people into it. It's, you know, we've got a bit of a job on our hands, I think.
Well, thank you. Yes, I mean, thank you, Charles. I mean, and that's precisely what you're doing through Fishing for Schools.
Yeah.
I think Michael schools. Yep, Michael, would you like to ask your question, please?
Yeah, Simon will know all about this because we fish together on the Meon, but I would encourage people, I mean, it's not free, but the clubs offer some of the best and least expensive fishing in the land. And I'm very lucky, being ex-army, that I can join the Portsmouth Services Fly Fishing Association, which has 7 beats on the Itchin, some of them are outstanding, 7 on the Meon, and for £450 a year, I can fish on a weekly basis, and even book them at sort of 9 o'clock in the morning. And then over on the Avon, I'm a member of the Services Dry Fly Fishing Association, which above the 303 up beyond Nether Avon's got 12 beats. And again, you can fish almost as much as you like, and you hardly ever see anyone, you know, for about £650 a year. And I know there's others around Salisbury. I think it's the Salisbury District Angling Club, is it, Simon?
Yeah, no,
it is, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there is some fantastic chalk stream fishing with some of the best beats in the south, but you do have to join a club. And I do know that £400, £500 or £600 a year, you know, would be quite expensive for anyone. But for literally a couple of days normal fee on the test or the Itchin, you can get an annual ticket. So yeah, it's not free, but it's an incredible bargain. I feel so lucky.
But Michael, I'll just say that the Salisbury water is 285 at the moment. There is a waiting list, obviously.
Yes.
And the irony is, and this is a delightful irony of all of this, is the fact that there is a drop off in membership, believe it or not.
Yes.
Because they're not stocking.
Yes.
We've reverted a lot to wild fish, and a lot of people have not liked that. So, you know, if you do like your wild trout fishing at a reasonable cost, that might be an option.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the Portsmouth services beat, because of the age of the old members who are literally dying off, and because of the lower number of military population, they're struggling to recruit either serving who come in straight away or ex-military people to go on the list. So for a number of years now, they're letting ex-military people introduce friends. And I've introduced 6, and they become full members. And at the moment, I think, but don't quote me, that the Portsmouth beat, or the Portsmouth, the members is about 50-50 between serving people, retired people, or non-military, because that's what we need to survive. I think the rod number is somewhere like 250 to make it viable. And over on the Services Dry Fly Fishing Association on the Avon, they've actually decided to, because they've got, as you say, reducing numbers, they've decided to sell off rods to people who want them, and they're selling them off an annual rod for several £1,000s. And that makes up for a deficit of about 20 or 30 rods paying the normal fee. So yeah, the numbers are there. And I would just encourage anyone who would like to and is not ex-military or whatever to join, because they're taking people from anywhere.
Thank you, Michael. I was very, Michael, actually, it's interesting. As you know, I run a fly fishing business, and I do actually now find myself competing for water against clubs. More and more river owners are preferring to hand their water over to clubs such as the Salisbury District and the Piscatorial and bits and pieces, and that's definitely something that's changing, and there's far more access to club water today than actually I think there ever has been in my lifetime. Anyone else out there who'd like to ask a question, just dive in, just unmute yourself and shout.
I thought this was going to be really robust, this one. I thought we were going to be getting all sorts of things coming out. There's
Kieran, did you want to ask something?
Yeah, I've got a question for you all. Hello, everyone. Great discussion as always. Somebody mentioned it earlier, but do techniques really vary across the country in terms of the methods and the flies that we use because of fly life? Do they really change, or do we use the same methods across the country?
Are you referring to rivers or still water?
In this case, it'll be rivers, because I believe still waters are fairly, although you do get lock style fishing up north and everything else. But yes, that would be my question: is do techniques change across?
Well, I think you have to be versatile wherever you fish, frankly. But I'm going to let Marina go with that one, I think.
Well, oh God, you've caught me off guard. I guess going back to what Phillippa was saying, that you, for example, you have the further north you get, let's say, the less mayfly hatch you'll have. So in the south, obviously, I mean, I've been told that, I don't know how long ago this was, and you might be able to enlighten me, but when you were trying to get back in your car, there were mayfly everywhere swarming your car, whereas in the north, I've never seen this happen. I've seen the odd mayfly, but then you do get, I guess, the hawthorns in both south and north. You get the sedges, you get the olives, you get the, I mean, I've noticed a lot actually on the Euro last season. We got a lot of yellow duns, and the fish were going bonkers. But then I had a chat with someone on the Y, and they said that they see them, but they've never seen a fish take one in 10 years that he's been guiding there. So yeah, it does vary slightly, but obviously we've got those patterns that we all use throughout the whole country.
One thing, Kieran, that I would say is one of the most devastatingly effective patterns you could ever use on a chalk stream is a North Country spider or soft tackle. I mean, you know, fish it in the surface, and you know, we're back to the skews thing. I mean, he adapted purely from those North Country spiders, or you know, Lancashire spiders, or Stuart's patterns in on the borders. So, you know, there really is that cross pollination, and you know,
I guess so. The North Country spiders don't replicate any specific pattern in the north, so they'll look like
Mr. Warman and Pritt might have something to say about that.
I think my take on your question, Kieran, is, and I'm probably going to do myself a slight disservice here. I think you have to be a really successful fisherman in the north. I think you have to be a far more adaptable fisherman. It's interesting when I go fishing with Andy Buckley, who's a great guide up in Derbyshire. He'll carry 4 or 5 rods with him, and he'll change his techniques quite dramatically during the day, using a completely different outfit. And that is nothing I would ever do on a chalk stream. We're far more one-dimensional, I think, in that respect. You know, the biggest difference we can have in the day is going from a dry to a nymph. But you know, we're pretty well always on floating lines. We're pretty well always on, you know, tippets of 9 to 12 feet that are about, you know, 3 pound breaking strain. But I think that would definitely be my take. But Phillippa, what's your take?
On like the fly patterns and stuff.
Yes.
The difference, yeah.
I mean, I think like Marina said, we get the less, you know, obviously the more you go north, the less flies we get. But then I think I've seen in the comments someone's mentioned about let me find it. About in the north, the caddis is king, where in the south the upwing's predominant. And I fish a lot of caddis patterns, rather compared to upwings and stuff like that. And like I think Simon just said, switching, I fished with Andy a couple of times, and he does carry an awful lot of tackle for a day's fishing. I mean, I travel light in terms of I take 1 fly box, 1 rod, and a little chest pack. And one fly box with, you know, 50, 60 flies in them. I'm not one to carry, you know, a load of flies. I mean, my fly box is tailored to fishing and what kind of fishing I do in terms of, like, you know, I do a lot of duo fishing, fishing a big sedge pattern and a little nymph, and I do a lot of Euro style nymphing. So in terms of, like, you know, like that, just, yeah.
Interesting. Well, thank you, Marina.
But I do have, like I think you mentioned, Simon, as well, switching from dry to nymph or from nymph to dry, that's about how excited my fishing day gets.
You're going to be fantastic on the chalk streams, Phillippa. I can't wait to have you down once we're all allowed to travel here, there, and everywhere.
Simon, we got Don with his hand up.
Yeah, I was going to say Don's got his hand up.
I was just going to say, I think I live in the Midlands, not the north or the south. And behind me on the photograph is a river that's actually got the characteristics of both a chalk stream and a northern stream. I find that the techniques, as long as you're versatile, work equally well in the north or the south. Fundamentally, for me, the difference is I'm not allowed to use some of my techniques on southern streams because of the rules. Things like upstream nymphing, you know, there's lots of things I could do on a chalk stream that would catch an awful lot of fish, but I'll be breaking the rules to do it. So I think the thing is that the north tends to have a rather freer view on what you're allowed to do that constitutes fly fishing, rather than there being a massive difference in technique.
There was a comment just now about using streamers.
Yeah, no, I saw that from Bert Busters. Yeah.
And we around Yorkshire and stuff, I don't know if many of you might know Martin Smith. He ties Martin's minnows.
Mega.
An absolute bomb of a fly, that is. Lure, whatever you want to. Is it a fly? Maybe that's another discussion.
Well, John Wilson actually we used to do a lot of shows together at Chatsworth, and John used to call it fly rodding. And that actually is well, it's true. I mean, nowadays, fly fishing is such a broad spectrum. And I'm going to be using a dam site more, especially after fishing with John Isaac and co. up in New Zealand this time last year. Gosh, it's changed. They were using a lot of streamers and catching a lot of fish, and just simple black streamers. And I'm going to be doing the same. If I'm allowed to do it, I'm going to do it.
We were fishing streamers last year on. I fished the tees last year, and we were fishing like mini streamers.
Yeah.
And the trout were just hammering them.
Yeah, and it's so exciting too.
Yeah, it is.
Don, I'm intrigued to hear your opinion. I mean, do you think all the rules we have down south on the chalk streams are unnecessary, or?
No, it's an interesting one that you've raised the subject, guys, about streamers, because one of the things with streamers is if you've got a nice big river, you can have tremendously good fun. And they will catch on small rivers, but I wouldn't want to be the person fishing the water after you've gone through it with a streamer. I think there is an issue on some rivers that streamer fishing is quite a disturbing technique for the water. I was asked by Theo Pike's looking to write a book on UK streamer fishing, and he asked me if I'd contribute. I said, well, the problem is on my river, it will be against the rules. So it's not that we haven't got rules on rivers up north. The reason that we wouldn't want streamers is that if you go through a relatively small, clear river with a streamer, it's probably not going to be much fun for the rest of the day for anybody else. Not that they don't work. I've done a lot of streamer fishing. They're very effective, but I wouldn't do it on certain rivers.
Well, thank you, Don. I can ask David Marriott. Do you want to jump in, David?
Well,
I've seen you.
It was only a comment on what Don was saying. We used to have we still have a member on the Wye in Derbyshire who fished only a muddler minnow on the basis that when he cast it upstream, it was a dry fly. When it came past him, it was a nymph. And when it got downstream, it was a wet fly. And he never failed.
I'd like to shake that man by the hand, David. Brilliant.
I guess a lot of the time with a streamer, you're perhaps fishing in places that you wouldn't normally fish with a nymph, or so you're getting deeper if you've got a weighted. I know that one of my he caught the biggest trout we've seen on the yawl so far, and that was on a streamer, and that was relatively clear. So I think from my experience, when the water is a little bit murky, that's when you want to get your streamer out. And yeah, huge trout came out from right underneath a bush on the other side, and it was 54 centimeters, and it was huge. Wow. And the boy was 13 years old, and I was like, that's not fair. So yeah, and this is a very simple streamer with marabou and a weighted head, and very simple, little bit of glitter as well.
Yeah, I mean, we were just using out in New Zealand, just simple tadpoles, that was it. But I take Don's point. I mean, it can be a disturbing factor, especially if people are casting to the opposite bank and it's swinging round through lives. But, you can actually fish a streamer exactly like you do upstream nymphs and into pockets and all the rest of it. It can be a very subtle and, not as disruptive a task, but you're down to anglers and how they interpret it and how they use it. And you can't.
Well, we've got time for a couple more questions. I see Peter Chalmers has got his hand up. So Peter, jump in, please.
A question maybe for the guest speakers, because Don made the point about rules and regulations. So why is it that in the south there are these many regulations? And why have we not got them in the north?
Well, I can probably answer. It literally, Peter, it is all about owner choice, and it all really comes out from the great Skews versus Halford debate of the 30s, and the people who followed Halford were sort of almost Taliban-like in their belief that dry fly fishing was the only way to catch fish. And they thought it wasn't about catching fish, it was about setting the bar as high as possible to make it as difficult to catch fish, because you mustn't forget things have changed dramatically in our lifetimes. You know, when Halford's generation went out fishing, they literally were only allowed to catch 4 fish in a day. They had to kill every one. And so that was almost the limiting factor.
Granddad's thing that.
So that's certainly the answer why we have all the rules down south. They're entirely discretionary.
Yourself on the thing. Watch this.
Someone's has unmuted themselves and we're hearing
Michael,
their child doing something.
Yeah. Michael, could you mute yourself, please?
Michael.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like Marina, Phillippa, Charles jump in with the answer to Peter's question?
No, I'm going to let the others. I've been talking way too much.
I don't think I've never had to, the only places I've ever really had to fish where we've had, you know, specific rules in terms of, you know, it's dry fly only. Like, for instance, when I fished with Andy, when was it? It was just last year before we all went into big lockdown. It was dry fly only. Whereas on like my rivers up, like further up north, we don't tend to have like many rules saying, you know, you can't use this type of fly, no nymphs. So I've never really been put into that, you know, situation where I've had to think about, you know, what flies I can and can't use.
Well, I would just
too many times.
I would just jump in and say to the person who said it, to Peter, just you try and use a wet fly or a fly that's gone beneath the surface on the peacock water and see how far you get. You know,
oh yeah,
the will be swift,
yeah,
and probably quite painful.
but also, I mean, what would, okay, so from the north, because I know that we're allowed to use squirmy worms, but if I said to you, okay, the water's high, it's murky, I've got a nymph on the bottom and a squirmy worm on the dropper, and we're going to nymph today. And if I said that to you in the south, let's say Charles or Simon, let's go squirmy worm today.
Well, I'd be right there with you because I'm using them all the time on the Frome for grayling. It's dirty water. So
yeah.
Which brings me to the point somebody said, as it popped up, Simon, there's a little thing here that pops up. Why don't you just go spinning? Well, I don't want to get another outfit. Thank you very much. But it does give us a topic. What is fly fishing? I think that could be an interesting one.
We get a lot of kids on the stretch of the Calder that I fish. There's one pool that runs through Sawby Bridge, my local town, which has one pool of free fishing, which is not owned by the club. And we get a lot of youngsters, which is good to see, who show up with spinning rods. And in fact, it was only last year I was fishing the exact same pool, and I was just sat watching them, and they came over and asked me, "What is that whip you've got?" I gave them a little, you know, a little demo, and they were really like mesmerised on this whip. And I kept saying, "It's not a whip; it's just called a fly rod." And they were mesmerised. But yeah, we do get a lot of kids on that section, you know, teenagers just messing about, you know, throwing spinners in and stuff like that. Which
easier. It's just physically easier.
Yeah,
it's a good introduction.
Obviously the kids to pick up and stuff.
Marina, I mean, I don't know if you actually, I know you're in Germany at the moment. I don't know if you do much fishing in Germany, but I mean, am I right in saying in Germany you have to take a test to get your fishing license? And that's my first question to you. My second question is, I mean, are they hidebound by rules in the same way that we are?
Yeah, interesting. So you have to do 20 or 30 hours of classroom tuition education and learn about everything from how many eggs pike lays or zander to everything else in between. And it's quite a hard test actually. And then German law says that you cannot play with or let's say, I don't know, fish for invertebrates unless you're going to kill them. So there's no catch and release policy. You get fined huge amounts if you get caught releasing a fish. Now there are some places, for example, I don't know, size limits or something, but it is the majority of German fishing or fisheries are catch and kill, and it's illegal to release fish. So they want you to take, let's say you're fishing, they want you to take a couple of fish and then they want you to stop.
But you lose an awful lot, don't you?
And also, yeah, exactly. Shake them off. But also so with children, I think you can get a license from 10 to 16, which is free, but below 10, it's well, for legally speaking, it's illegal for you to go fishing until you're 10 years old. And the parent, let's say the kid that wants to go fishing, the parent doesn't want to go fishing, they cannot take their kid fishing. You have to have the license. You have to go through the exams. You have to have a license to take a kid fishing. Mm-hmm. So it's hard.
That's extraordinary. I mean, I knew it was fairly bureaucratic, but I had no idea. Well, thank you. That's fascinating.
Given Brexit, we don't have to worry about that anymore, do we, really?
Fair enough. Well, unless anyone wants to shout out, I think we'll just wrap this up. It's been actually a very interesting discussion. I have to congratulate everyone for keeping it, not getting heated about it. Fascinating chats there. I'll put the recording up on Buzzsprout and the video recording up on YouTube probably tomorrow morning. But just so thank you for listening. Just some last parting comments we'll start with Phillippa, and then we'll have Marina, and then Charles, and then Charles will say something, and then we'll say goodbye to you all and wish you a good weekend. So Phillippa.
No, thanks all for joining in, and like Simon said, I'm glad it all stayed civilized and didn't get heated in any way, and we all abided by the rules.
Yeah, I'm going to echo Phillippa there, and hopefully we can get out as soon as possible. I think it's in the UK, it's the 31st of March, is it?
29th.
Yeah, 29th.
Yeah, sorry, that would be. So 29th. So yeah, tight lines to everyone. And I hope everyone has a successful season.
Well,
Charles?
I'd just like to thank everyone for being so pleasant about the whole thing and it not being abrasive or in sort of, I don't know, just geographically challenged, I think. At the end of the day, we fish, and where we fish, we enjoy, and that knows no geography. We don't have a choice very often. I don't want to travel further than I need to. And I've got great fishing around me. And I think we all too often don't celebrate the waters that, we drive past or we walk past. I mean, let's go exploring little tiny places that we haven't done up to now. But I think we do have our topic, Simon, for next time. What is fly fishing?
Okay.
What is, what defines a fly? Because I honestly, nowadays, I don't know. I really don't. Given, fly tying and how it's developed, I just don't know. So on that, have a great weekend. If you are local and you can fish, it's a lovely weekend to do it. There's still the odd pike to be caught. There's still the odd grayling to be caught. So enjoy what you have and celebrate what we have as a nation that has got an awful lot of people in it and still waters to fish in.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Charles. I can't better that ending. So I will say goodbye and a happy weekend to everyone. Let's all wave goodbye. Thank you very much for taking part. And we'll see you at 11 a.m. last Friday of March. Speak to you soon. Cheers, everyone. Bye.
Bye.